Hey, what's up, YouTube? Logan, drunken metalhead who muses. I just went to a killer concert last night for this band right here. I saw YOB on their first U.S. tour in a long while, and it was amazing. My ears are still ringing. I am recovering here in my back for sure. But I'm inspired to kind of talk about one of their earlier albums because of this killer tour. I'm talking about Elaborations of Carbon. Let's crack a beer and dive in. So beer-wise, I'm going with one of the New Orleans staples. This is Holy Roller by Urban South Brewery. And yeah, Urban South are just one of those brewing companies I can tell you'll be able to find kind of wherever you go within the Louisiana, Mississippi area. And with IPAs like this, I'm okay with it. Holy Roller, my tie-in is that seeing YOB live is to me almost like a ritualistic experience. But no, this is really good, juicy and light IPA. So besides seeing them live, I kind of wanted to review this album because guess what? It's getting reissued this year by Relapse. Relapse, the master of reissuing things, is doing an updated version of Elaborations of Carbon and remastering it as well. And when you look it up on Spotify, that is the version that is available. So I wanted to have the chance to talk about this original CD that came out all the way back in 2002 on 12th Records and kind of give praise to YOB's beginnings before Relapse comes across with their reissue and kind of buries this. So as a debut album, Elaborations of Carbon definitely does a great job of introducing the average listener to kind of what YOB is and what YOB will be. Like even for the start, they already have a lot of their key elements nailed down. The songwriting is pretty consistent. They're already favoring longer songs and longer albums. They already have these epic guitar breaks that really just capture your attention. There's already play between more laid-back psychedelic pieces and undertones to their music, as well as more brutal, extreme, almost funeral doom elements. It's all already here on Elaborations of Carbon. YOB is definitely wearing their influences on their sleeve more. You can hear certain elements of Black Sabbath and Sleep and Cathedral across this album. I actually even hear Caius at points. There's some stoner rock vibes thrown in on here. Because of that, it's not as cerebral as what YOB will end up doing later in their career. So that's why I think if a YOB listener approaches this expecting something closer to what they are on Illusion of Motion or Unreal Never Lived, they might be disappointed, and they'll probably be greeted with more a YOB that veers into sleep territory. They're also already playing around with some of the sound clips that they use in later albums from one Alan Watts, writer and philosopher who kind of brought in Buddhist and Hindu beliefs and philosophy kind of more to Western culture. And they used one of his sound clips pretty well on track 4, Revolution. So they're already playing around with that. And once again, to bring this album, That is the guy who says, "Wake up." Really, the only downside of elaborations is probably the same downside that you can level against a couple of YOB releases. It kind of gets lost in itself from time to time. And on song 4, Revolution in particular, I kind of find myself drifting. It kind of happens in the first portion of Asleep in Samsara as well, where it's just too slow and meandering, mainly because you know what's coming up next, and you're just so excited to get there. Your brain kind of just shuts off until that happens, and you let a whole 10 minutes of song go by before you wake up when the riff changes. The other small detractor would just be you can hear the other bands influencing YOB. They're still not entirely their own unique entity here. And that's only a very minor detractor. A band's got to get to where they're going somehow, and they have to take certain steps along the way. And to me, this is an important step along the more stoner rock, desert rock kind of vibe to get to where they're heading. Alright, so to dive into the songs that I did like from this album, Universe Throb is a great opener and a good way to start off their whole career. The YOB tempo changes are there, and there's a killer guitar break as well, like right before the song hits. It's awesome. All the Children Forgotten, track 2, is great too, mainly because it's YOB almost at their most heavy, and there's a certain part where he says, Mike says, "I see the beauty in life," and then it gets to this low guttural, and he yells, "But I don't see the dogma," and man, it gives me chill every time. Simple but memorable. Clear Seeing is actually my favorite song on the album. It's probably the most Sabbath song that YOB has ever written, but it really shows off how great the bass and the drums are for this band. Easily my favorite on the album. Pain of Eye is fucking savage and is the heaviest song on this album and really shows YOB trying to come into the most extreme part of their sound. It's slow and it just nails you like a wrecking ball. The final track, Asleep in Samsara, as I said earlier, it's a little slow and it's kind of a little too drifting in the beginning, but then it really tightens it up at the end with a almost Caius-like jam, and it ends on a very strong note. So I really appreciate the song and how it builds. I just wish it got to the final piece sooner. So, that being said, easily an amazing start for YOB, and definitely sees the band practically fully formed and almost fully realized for what they wanted to do on their debut, of all things. I mean, probably all credit to Mike Scheidt on that one, because he's the only member on this who's still in the band. But it's also cool to have an album which kind of displays their earlier influences on their sleeve, But then at the same time, you can still see where they're going. So I give this one an 8.6 out of 10 on Drunken Metalhead Reviews. Alright, so I wanted to do a quick take on the Relapse reissue. I've really only listened to it twice, but it's a little different for sure. I think it's changed the production in both bad and good ways. The vocals are a little more forward. You can hear Mike better. And for certain songs, that is a plus. I think Universe Throb is kind of a stronger opening because of it. Asleep in Samsara as well. But then I think the guitars and the drums sound a little more neutered. The drums especially kind of come off a little flatter. And I do not know if I'm a fan of that. So I think I'm still personally a fan of this. I will say I have not liked the album covers for the reissues that Relapse has done. Like, I've heard people, give shit to this as the album cover, but the Relapse reissue, what is that? It's like a weird, like, distorted image. I'll show it over here. I don't know, it kind of lacks a little bit of, like, the Yobism to me. Especially this, which to me, it's a great album that shows where they're coming from originally. Like that 90s, you know, stoner rock doom sound. And I love it. But I think it's still a worthy addition to a Yob fans collection, especially if you don't already own this album. So I would still recommend seeking and buying the Relapse reissue if you can. Alright, now for the good stuff. Seeing Yob live, June 17th, 2023. What a fucking concert. This was at New Orleans in the House of Blues. It was really awesome. A local band, Drab, opened, and they were like more hard rock with like a little bit of like stoner and sludge guitar riffs. Definitely mid-era Corrosion Conformity style. They were pretty good. Pallbearer, I thought were great, but the sound was kind of fucked up on their set. The bass was so heavy in the mix that the first couple songs were really drowned out, and it took them most of their set to kind of figure it out. Thankfully, they had it figured out by the time they got to the final track of the set, which was Worlds Apart off of Foundations of Burden. And God, I love this album, and I love finally being able to see that song live. It was sick. And then Yob, the band, absolutely killed it. I thought the new drummer, he did great. Mike sounded great. He kept saying his voice was giving him a hard time, but God, I couldn't tell. Once again, the sound might have been a little more compressed than what I would have preferred, and it was a little tougher to differentiate the specific members during certain songs in the set. But God, it was absolutely amazing seeing. Yeah, first time I've seen him since 2018, so it had been too long. And holy shit, my ears are definitely ringing. My hearing has gotten worse. Thank you, Yob. And then, spoilers, I'm going to talk about the set. So if you don't want to hear what the set was, go and click out. It was probably the best live set I've seen from Yob. They've, I think, played the most songs. And a lot of these tracks are ones that I've always wanted to hear and just finally got to hear live. This is my fourth time seeing, so this was a big deal for a couple of these tracks. Ball of Molten Lead was their opener, and I was just blown away that they opened up with that. It was fucking awesome. Then they went into Nothing to Win, one of my favorite songs off of Clearing the Path to Ascend, and that was kind of the song where the band sounded the most jumbled together because of like the sound production in the venue, but it was still just a ripping headbanger. And then they played The Pain of I off of this one, and holy shit, it was awesome. Started the first mosh pit of the night, which I thought was sick. And then this blew me away. They played Catharsis, and that shit was crazy. I definitely love Catharsis, and in the live setting, it translated well. It's a very linear song, and it was kind of fun to see it all build together live to get to the final crescendo. Then after that, Adrift in the Ocean, my favorite Yob song. couldn't have been happier to hear that again for the third time seeing them live. They played that, and then they closed with Quantum Mystic, which that was big for me. I absolutely loved Quantum Mystic and The Unreal Never Lived, so hearing that live was a bucket list item for sure. So I don't know if it was my favorite time seeing them live, but it was definitely up there, and as I said, the set list was probably the best. Got this shirt, and I also picked up a reissue of Atma, favorite YOB album. Felt like I deserved to have two different copies of it. Why not? But yeah, there we go. YOB, one of my favorite bands. Any chance I get to ramble on about them, I will. I hope more people listen to this album because of that reissue and just because it's a great album. Check it out. YOB is love. Cheers.